The 3DS is a console that I've only recently begun to explore, and when checking out what mods are available for it, I found that it mostly consists of some pretty neat software-based mods, such as custom firmware and emulation options. However, when it comes to physical mods, the one that seems to be at the top of everyone's list are video capture kits. So today, we'll be taking a look at one from a modder named Loopy, which definitely looks to be like a very promising USB-C based video capture kit. So, let's take a look. Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Tito and welcome to another episode of Retro Renew. Today we'll be taking a look at a really cool mod for the 3DS that gives you the ability to capture high quality audio and video footage of its two displays. This is the 3DS video capture card from a modder named Loopy. This kit allows you to connect your new 3DS XL to a PC via a USB-C cable and capture video and audio directly from the console using a very intuitive and easy to use custom software. It's honestly a really neat kit, and I love just how stealth it looks from the outside with only this USB-C port to give you a small hint that there's something special hidden inside the console. A mod like this is a really great option for those that want to stream 3DS or even regular DS content using original Nintendo hardware. It's super easy to use, and it just works. That is, if you manage to get it installed. While the Loopy 3DS Capture Kit may be the gold standard when it comes to capturing video footage on this handheld, it's definitely no cakewalk to get it installed into the console. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so sit back, relax, and let's take a closer look at the Loopy Video Capture Kit. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to go over all the parts that come with this kit. Then I'll show you how to install it into a new 3DS XL, go over all of its features, review the pros and cons, and of course provide you with my overall thoughts. Now at the center of this mod is this, the Capture Card PCB. This is installed inside of a new 3DS XL and features a USB-C port on top. Now in order to tap into all the video and audio signals from the 3DS console, we have 3 flex ribbon cables. This one here interfaces with the top screen and intercepts the video signal before it gets to the screen. It has this unique U-shape which allows it to align with the driver board, but that'll become more clear during the installation portion of the video. And this ribbon here interfaces with the bottom screen. Both of these cables do not require any soldering at all, which is great, making them easy to install. However, this last one does require some soldering. This intercepts the audio signals from the 3DS motherboard for the capture card. Now, the only other thing included with this kit is this USB-C cable, which was actually optional, but it only costs I think around $2, so I decided to pick it up. Alright, so that's everything that comes with the Loopy Video Capture Kit. But before I show you how to go ahead and install it, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, iFixit. If you've been watching my channel over the years, you've probably noticed that I've been using the same screwdriver set since I started the channel. The Protect Toolkit from iFixit has been my go-to whenever I need to tear down a console for pretty much all of my modding and refurb projects. iFixit tools have always been by my side, making the job just a whole lot easier. And right now, from May 10th to May 31st, you can get a hefty 20% off select toolkits from iFixit, including my beloved Protect Toolkit, which is a fantastic deal. Another kit they have for sale is the Protect Disassembly module, which includes another tool that I use all the time, the Magnetic Organizing Mat. There are quite a few qualified toolkits that are also on sale, which I'll have listed in the video description down below, so definitely check them out. And if you're like me and you're passionate about fixing and modding video game hardware, this is the perfect opportunity to upgrade your toolset and take your modding to the next level. So for all your electronic repairing needs, definitely check out iFixit using the link in the video description below. And again, a huge thank you to iFixit for sponsoring this video. Anyway, now let's go ahead and start modding this 3DS. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is tear down the 3DS. Now, as with a lot of these more modern consoles, and especially with ones like the 3DS, you'll definitely want to keep track of all your screws as they're not all the same, and misplacing them while putting everything back together could cause damage to the shell. So definitely keep track of where each and every screw goes. I like using a magnetic board for helping me stay organized, like this one I got from iFixit. Also, as we disassemble the console, we'll have to disconnect quite a few ribbon cables, so sit back, relax, and follow along. Okay, with all the screws and ribbon cables removed, flip the console open to provide more slack on the LCD ribbon cables, remove the cart reader, and then proceed to gently flipping the motherboard over as shown. Then we'll need to remove this plastic midframe, as this will be the first item we need to trim. According to the website, we need to trim the top right corner by making a 2cm by 1cm trim as shown. The way that I personally like doing this is by scoring the plastic along the edge that I want to cut, and then slowly and carefully fatiguing the plastic along that scored line. This tends to provide a pretty clean cut, which you can touch up with a file afterwards. And here you can see the portion that I removed. Next, let's move our attention back to the motherboard. We'll need to remove this LCD ribbon cable and then replace it with one that came with the kit. Go ahead and grab this U-shaped ribbon cable and then install it. You'll want to fold it over as shown, making sure that this secondary connector on the ribbon is not lying on top of the other connector below it. And then connect the original LCD ribbon cable that we just removed to the connector on our new ribbon cable as shown. And then I used a bit of Kapton tape to ensure that it doesn't move and stays in its position. Next, we'll install the other ribbon cable to the bottom LCD. And then we'll fold it over so that it exposes the other side of the connector here. Okay, with both ribbons installed, we can go ahead and reinstall our mid-frame bracket, and then we'll flip the motherboard back over. Here you can have a better look at how the ribbon cable connectors are next to each other and not on top of each other. If they were stacked on top of each other, then we wouldn't be able to properly secure the motherboard. Now we can go ahead and secure the motherboard back into the shell and reconnect all the ribbon cables. Please note that all the screws will be reinstalled except this one here, since it is where the USB-C connector will be located. now we're going to go ahead and install the last ribbon cable for capturing audio. You'll have to solder it to these pads here. So what I like to do is take a craft knife and very gently remove any coatings that are on the pad, which will allow the solder to stick to it much more easily. And then I'll add some flux and pre-tin each of the pads. And here are all the pads pre-tinned and ready to accept the ribbon cable. With the cable aligned over the pads, go ahead and solder them in place. And then solder in the anchor point to help provide some strain relief on the ribbon. And this is what the final result should look like. Next, with all the ribbons installed, let's go ahead and reinstall the battery just to make sure that everything is working. Fantastic! Everything seems to be in good working order, so we can go ahead and proceed with the install. Now comes the tricky part. In order to remove material from inside of the shell to fit the capture board, I'll be using a Dremel and this drill press accessory, as well as a routing bit to make precision cuts to the shell. I definitely recommend using something like this as it will really help get better results. Anyway, I placed some painter's tape onto the bottom surface to help protect the shell from any potential scratches. Then I installed the router bit into the Dremel, and before getting started, I taped the trigger ribbon cable out of the way so that I don't accidentally damage it. Then I trimmed some of the large posts and features out of the way with a flush cutter to make the routing process a bit easier, and then marked where I wanted to trim. I used the photo on Loopy's website as a guide on what I need to route away. And then I began to trim the shell, making sure to go slowly and hold the shell firmly so that it doesn't slip away. Again, go slow, wear eye protection, and take your time. Every so often, I would take a vacuum to clear off the shavings so that I can see where I need to trim. After I felt comfortable with the amount that I trimmed, I then placed the capture board into the shell to mark where I'm going to create the opening for the USB-C port. Once I figured out where I was going to put it, I made 3 holes using my craft knife because I found that you have much better control than if you were to use a drill. With the 3 holes made, I cut them together to make a small horizontal slit. And then, with a precision file, I very slowly began to widen the opening and create the shape of the USB-C port, constantly checking my work and making small adjustments at a time. This process took over an hour, so definitely take your time and don't rush it. And here's all the trimming that I completed on the back shell. It's a lot of work and requires a ton of patience, so definitely take your time. Now go ahead and connect the capture board to the 3 ribbon cables that we installed onto the motherboard. And then use one of the exterior screws to secure the board. You don't want to screw it all the way in, just enough so that it looks like this. Next, we can go ahead and install the analog stick. And then we'll go ahead and solder these 2 wires to the charging port as shown. This is what enables us to charge the 3DS via the USB-C port. Then go ahead and drop in our freshly trimmed rear shell. Now do take note when reattaching the left trigger ribbon, you'll want to tuck it in under the capture board as shown so that it doesn't get pinched in between the rear shell and the board itself. Then shimmy the rear shell onto the console and then button it all up. And there you have it, folks. Loopy's 3DS capture mod fully installed. This is definitely one of the more challenging mods that I've done in recent memory. While the actual installation of the kit wasn't too bad, it's the extensive shell trimming that presents the greatest challenge. But all that aside, I have to say that the results are fantastic. The way that the kit connects to the PC is extremely easy and straightforward with absolutely no fuss or setup required. Just simply plug and play. So with that, let's take a look at all the features the Loopy Capture Kit brings to the table. Let's first start with the easy stuff. In addition to capturing footage straight out of the console, plugging in the USB-C cable allows you to also charge the 3DS. This is fantastic because while you're streaming 3DS games, the console also charges itself, meaning you won't need to connect a separate charging cable. Everything is done through this single USB-C port, which is fantastic. Now, all the other features of the capture card I have to show you on a computer, so let's hop on over to my PC. The first thing you'll need to do is download the software from Loopy's website, which I'll have linked down below in the video description. Once the contents are extracted and you open the software, simply plug in the 3DS with a USB-C cable, and you should immediately see the two screens displayed in your capture software. It honestly couldn't be any simpler. Now, the software itself is no frills. You get a window with your streaming content, and another with a few customizing options. On the main screen, you'll see a large record button which allows you to record video footage, a camera icon which allows you to take a snapshot, and this button with the 3 dots which allows you to direct where you want all of your footage and screenshots to be saved. I went ahead and made a dedicated 3DS folder to save all of my footage. Now, the split window button here on the bottom allows you to separate the single capture window into 2 discrete windows for the top and bottom screen individually. This is useful if you want to use OBS or some other capture software, which will give you the flexibility to individually size and orient the streaming 3DS footage. Now, before we get into the video and audio settings, you can see this large slider here on the right that allows you to adjust the volume output, which is actually a really convenient feature. Now, moving into the video settings, here you have a few customizing options. Now, keep in mind that these settings are only for the actual recorded footage. You will not see these changes reflected in our live preview window here on screen. So the first thing you can do here is change the video codec. There are some pretty high quality ones here, such as the Blackmagic 10-bit 444, but do be careful as these higher quality codecs can generate some pretty large file sizes. I find that the default Microsoft video format will be more than adequate for most. And right below the codec dropdown, we have a quality and FPS slider. I actually leave these both at the max, and I don't have any issues like dropped frames. Lowering the quality down to 0, for example, leaves you with footage that is essentially useless. So, long story short, you definitely want to keep these both on the highest settings. And the radial buttons below allow you to focus on what you want to record. You can capture both the top and bottom screens together, which gives you captured footage that looks like this, or you can just focus on the top or bottom screens. Now, the audio settings really didn't have much customization at all. Pretty much you can just set to where the audio output is going. In my case, the computer speakers. Now, for those that want a bit more customizations on how you want your footage to look, you can actually use other software such as OBS. This is actually really good for games that may not have a traditional orientation, such as titles like Hotel Dusk that require you to hold the DS like a book. In Loopy software, there doesn't appear to be a way to change the orientation of the screens. Not a huge deal, as you can easily resolve this using software like OBS. And speaking of Hotel Dusk, regular DS games look great as well. So this is definitely a fantastic option for streaming original DS games too. Okay, so that's about it when it comes to features, but now let's go over the pros and cons. Starting with the pros, one of the things that I really like about this kit is that it can be charged over USB-C, so you don't have to worry about drawing down the battery while capturing video footage, or having the need to connect a separate charger to the console. This greatly simplifies everything and makes for a more integrated and clean setup. And speaking of the USB-C port, having it is nice in and of itself. I've read that other kits use micro USB ports, which would definitely be a non-starter for me. Additionally, the software that this kit uses is extremely user-friendly and very simple. It has everything you need and nothing you don't. As soon as the software is open and you connect your 3DS, it immediately recognizes it and starts displaying the video. No need for setting up or pairing the device. Essentially, just plug and play. Also, using it with other capture footage is simple as well. Here you can see that I'm using it with OBS, which gives you more control over the footage and the ability to customize it exactly how you want it to look like. And speaking of which, the footage looks fantastic. The overall quality of the output is excellent, and I haven't noticed any glitching or frame drops. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that there is a bit of latency introduced when using this kit. I didn't do any precise measurements or anything, but here you can see in the footage taken at 240 frames per second that there is indeed a small bit of lag. This wasn't enough to be distracting when playing games on the console, and do remember that this is primarily a video capture device, so latency really shouldn't be an issue since you're most likely gaming on the console itself and using the mod to simply capture that footage. So overall, I think this is a great kit, and it definitely does what it's supposed to do really well. But okay, those are the pros. Now let's get into the cons. First and foremost, I have to say that this is a pretty difficult mod. There's no sugarcoating it. While there is some challenging soldering work required, it's the amount of trimming and the precision required of that trimming that makes this a tough one to do. Having the right tools definitely helps, like that Dremel drill press that I used, but also experience using those tools is a definite must. I actually practiced on a scrap DS Lite shell to make sure I understood how the drill press works and what to expect in terms of how it performs, especially on representative plastic materials, to get a sense of how I should approach this type of mod. Now, another con is that this mod requires permanent shell modification. This is definitely not a no-cut mod, requiring fairly extensive trimming inside of the console. It's not as huge of a deal since most of the trimming is internal, but I know for some folks, this can be a deal breaker. Now, the price may also be considered a con. To buy a standalone kit to install yourself costs about $120. To me, I think that's fair for what it can do. However, it appears that Loopy does offer an installation service. According to the website, he charges around $200, not including shipping, which appears to include the cost of the mod itself. So really, he's charging about $80 for the installation, which to me seems like a great deal given the amount of work that's involved. So if you're apprehensive about installing the kit yourself, I think this would be a fantastic option. I would just double check to make sure that it does in fact include the cost of the mod itself, as it's not super clear on the website. Okay, so what do I think of this kit? Well, for me, I personally don't think I'd get a ton of use out of it. I love the 3DS as a portable console and would really like to see a consolizer of some kind made for it. But being able to hook it up to a computer to record high quality gameplay footage isn't something that I currently need or have a desire to do. To me, this is a purpose-built mod. It is predominantly meant for people who stream 3DS content or have some other need to capture 3DS footage. This isn't a consolizer and shouldn't be treated as a device to play the 3DS on a larger screen because at the end of the day, you still need to use the 3DS's onboard controls. There's no real way to hook up an external controller given the unique input configuration of the console, i.e. the touchscreen. So for what it is, it's great. If you have a genuine need to capture 3DS footage, this does an absolutely fantastic job at that. But if you're someone like me, it's kind of a cool novelty, but probably something that I won't be using very often. Well folks, there you have it. Loopy's 3DS capture board. A great way to capture 3DS footage, if that's something you really need. Now if you enjoyed this video, I really think you'll like this one here, so check it out. And as always, thank you all so much for tuning in today, and I'll catch you again next time.